Welcome to our guest today. He started his career at Middlesbroughs, progressing through the academy, making his first team debut in the English Premier League at the young age of 17. He was England captain from under 16s to 20s, representing England at the under 20s World Cup. If that's not impressive enough, he also scored that famous winning goal for Aberdeen against Bayern Munich in the UEFA Cup. Please welcome our guest today, Josh Walker. Before we dive in, if you could sum up your career in 3 words, what would it be and why?
I think I'm probably going to contradict myself with the words I'm going to say, just with the way my career started and ended. I'd probably go proud for all the time and effort and that myself, my family put in to get us to that point. Mm-hmm. Gutted the way things were, my journey was maybe supposed to go and the way it fell apart. And the last one, I don't know if this is the right word, probably underachieved. Well, certainly, because of the injuries, I did underachieve. So those words probably.
Right, we can keep an account of those words as we go through. Mm-hmm. So we can start with your journey because I've got lots of questions for you. So the first one is your first memory of football.
First memory of football. I was actually talking about this the other day. I obviously grew up a Newcastle fan, mm-hmm. and I used to love David Ginola. I thought he was class. Like he was like one of our top
flair players. His actual football?
Oh, he's football. No, definitely not his hair. No, he's. I just thought he was unbelievable, right and left foot, and he was the inspiration on me working my both feet. I was right-footed, but when he come to Newcastle, obviously he was the first player I really saw that was natural on both feet.
His balance was unreal.
Incredible. And I mean, like literally could cross right and left foot exactly the same. And as soon as I saw him, that was me in the garden. So from like 6-7 year old, I'm in the garden, and he always have me Ginola strip on. He used to strap his hand. So I used to go in the garden, strap my hand up, and I would just practice right and left foot from like 6-7 year old.
And so would that be you driving the fact that you wanted to be like him, or was your dad a big influence in that?
Well, my dad was a professional footballer between the ages of like 17 to 21, but obviously football then was a lot different. Mm-hmm. He'd played
more working class game.
Aye, and he'd played it. He got a scholarship down at like an apprenticeship down at Burnley.
Right.
He had a chance to go to Leicester, and he was a striker, and he tells us he could have played up front with Gary Lineker, but he decided on going to Barnsley instead after Burnley, and played at Scunthorpe, and then he said, I mean, he only had a 4 or 5 year career in professional football, mm-hmm. but he went to France, Finland, and then decided to go into the fire brigade. I mean, he did total different career.
And did he have a big influence in you growing up in terms of helping you practice or telling you what to do?
Well, I think, me growing up, he was always playing like Saturday football and, like the equivalent of like Lowland League and stuff up here.
So he was in and around it all the time.
I was travelling with him, so he'd pick the lads up, or me and my brother, and we had 2 boxer dogs would be in the boot of the car. Honestly, me and my brother and the 2 dogs. Just going to all these games, and I loved it, like be on the pitch playing football before the game, 4 or 5 year old, and playing at half time, playing after the game. I just loved the experience of that. So he was obviously a massive influence in that, but a lot of it just purely came from, I would see something and it would just inspire us straight away, like obviously we grew up in a total different generation. You had nothing that was distracting you in terms of like PlayStations and all that and all the other stuff they've got now. I was just wanting to be outside and being a footballer, and I'd be playing in the garden and I'd be commentating as I'm playing. Do you know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, street football is something that nobody plays now. Like, you've never see kids out in the street playing, where obviously when we were growing up, that was just all you did. Like, you would, after school, you'd play football, and then you'd go to your training at night, and the weekends were the same. You'd maybe have games in the morning, street football in the afternoon. It was like constant.
Yeah, well, that's something massive, and I think, obviously the jobs we do, it's fantastic. Do you know what I mean? Like, parents want to invest in their kids, and I think that's brilliant. And I think if we'd had that when we were younger as well, we probably would have done it. But
it's balance like that.
Yeah. The kids still need to go out and
express themselves, have fun.
Yeah, like my son Jack, I mean, he's very much similar to me in a way. He'll not want to play on the PlayStation. If someone knocks on the door, he's a way out. Like he's playing football and I'm pushing him out. Well, I'm having to drag him back in. Do you know what I mean? So he's got a bit of me in that sense. But I had the street football side. Like I remember I'd played in the Premier League. We'd played, was it Blackburn? We played Blackburn in the Premier League. I'd played. Like, bearing in mind that I'm like 18 at this point, so I'm like probably too old to be doing this. But we used to always play football at like Morrison's. We had the bus shelters at Morrison's. Right. And I remember going back to my mum and dad's, and my mates were still like kicking the ball about, and I went down to Morrison's. So I'd played full game against Blackburn in the Premier League Saturday night, smashing balls against Morrison's. But that's just what you did. Do you know what I mean?
Loved the game, mate.
Oh, I loved it. Aye.
So what was your first intro to academy football?
So it was, I was 8-year-old. I'd just started playing like boys club football for a team, Killingworth Boys Club. My dad and a couple of my other mates' dads like started this team, and we were playing in that. And we played like a couple of weeks at 7-a-side. So this is what you used to do. We played 11-a-side friendlies. So this is an 8-year-old playing 11-a-side.
It's crazy when you look back.
The pitches are massive. Goals are huge. But we played 11-a-side friendlies on a Saturday. And then on a Sunday, we played in like a 7-a-side league. So I did that for a couple of weeks. Come home from school, and my mum and dad said, Middlesbroughs phoned up and they'd like you and this other lad, Ben Richardson, who was in my team, to go down and train with him. At the time, it wasn't academies. Academies weren't in existence then, or certainly Middlesbroughs wasn't anyway. Yep. It was a School of Excellence. Right. So they actually had one in Gateshead. So it was 20 minutes from our house. So we went down there, and I remember walking in and just being overawed by it. I was like, these kids are like robots, right? Like they were doing turns, they were doing everything, you know, like a lot of my football had been just off the cuff. Do you know what I mean? You hadn't been coached, you hadn't been anything, you know, it was yourself.
Bit of raw talent there as well.
Raw talent, yeah, that's all it was. And then going into specific drills and specific turns, everything being kind of structured, it took us a while to get used to that, you know.
And did you like that sort of structure?
I was one of these that if something's put in front of us, like I want to try and achieve it. Like obviously football-wise, I
want challenge.
Yeah. But I found this challenge really tough. Like to the point where, well, like I say, I went there at 8. I got signed. I did like a 6-week trial thing. And then I got signed. I can't remember what you actually signed, but I remember getting to about 11-year-old. And at this point, it became an academy, so it was a lot more structure to it. So you would go down to Middlesbrough Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then play a Sunday. Right. So it was a lot of travel and a hell of a commitment by my mum and dad to do it, you know, which I'll always be forever grateful for that. But
you don't appreciate that till you're a bit older, though, in terms of what your parents do, taking you and supporting you.
No, exactly. And it's, the like you said, with the structure of it, it was just, I just found it really difficult. Do you know, like,
was it difficult in the sense it was like training so many times a week and the actual physical aspect of it, or was it just difficult in terms of like trying to take the drills on board and learn sort of structure within your game?
I think it was a mix of everything. You know, like you were still allowed to play boys club football. Right. So I was playing that as well. And I don't know if I was getting distracted of being the best player in the boys club, but being probably, I wouldn't say the worst, but nowhere near the top level academy footballer. So to try and go from being brilliant at one to then stepping up and being average or below within a group was really difficult. And I think it was starting to show. I think I just lost confidence. I think that was the biggest thing. I lost confidence. And I remember we were playing Bradford for Middlesbrough against Bradford. and turned up at the game, and all the age groups would turn up together, and then they would just put you with your coach and whatever. They put me with the year below, but they didn't say anything. So I thought, anyway, no one really said anything. I remember being like upset inside, but I thought, I can't cry. Yeah, like, why am I with a younger age group? Like, what's happening here? I knew when I looked, but like, I knew I wasn't performing. And I knew I was inside. I was like lost confidence. I remember going and saying to my mum, Dad, I'm playing the year below, and they just said to us, they were like, look, just in the background, Middlesbrough had told me mum and dad like struggling and that. So they just said to us, look, if this turns out to be your last game, son, just go and enjoy it. Like, I think maybe it was going to be my last game. Just go out and enjoy it. You go and show them that, you're better than what they think. So anyway, went out, played Bradford. I scored 2. Obviously playing the year below, I scored 2. And after the game, I went training with Middlesbrough the next week. But such a bit of luck came my way, because the boys' clubs that my mum and dad were trying to get us into back at home, obviously telling them, look, he's going to get released by Middlesbrough. One of them being Wallsend, which is like the top boys' club in Newcastle. They were wanting me to sign before I signed at Middlesbrough, but obviously you're going to go to Middlesbrough. So when it came back, that they were like, oh, no, we don't want him. Like, we're full. Obviously, I was better than all their players, but it was more like, who do you think you are, turning us down? But just as well they did, because my mum and dad just kept pursuing it at Middlesbrough, and I just gradually started getting better and better, playing the year below for a few weeks. Got moved up to my own age group. So that was at 11. Got moved back to my age group at 12.
So see, on that, before we move on, I think, see, moving them age groups, a lot of countries do dual banding. So basically, like, it's more about size as opposed to age. So you're playing against kids that are physically roughly the same as you, so they've got time to develop. Do you think they should incorporate that in Britain?
I do, because you see it now. Some of the kids that are playing against each other, the size difference is incredible. And unless you've been, in my opinion, unless you've really been, like we've been in the football circuit, like, you see things differently. Like, you see a footballer for a footballer. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes, and fair play to parents doing it on the side, but sometimes they don't quite see it in that sense. You know what I mean? Like, if they see their son or
I don't think they think long term. Everything's short term based. Where similar to what you're saying, I think you can see a potential in a player and realise that they've just not developed.
And that's all it is.
100%. And they end up being the best players, predominantly. Is it because they need to think quicker than other players? They need to use their body well. And all part of that is like development, where if you're bigger and stronger, you can just sort of steam through people. So you're not having to think as much. And that's why the small technical players end up being better players long term than the big physical players. And it's something that I've never understood with academies, like looking for physicality over technicality.
Well, certainly when I grew up, we were talking about one the other day, like you played against Anthony Peacock. I mean, 5'0", but incredible, like absolutely incredible. Like, you couldn't find a better technician of a footballer. The receiver could do anything. You ask anyone who
was like had eyes in the back of his head, it was just like
incredible.
So guy.
But because he came through in an era where if you weren't 6 foot and you couldn't run, do you know what I mean? It was so.
It's funny though, the British philosophies, I don't know if the game's changing slightly, but it's still an element of that, specifically in Scotland. But when you look at like even who won the Euros, it's like, it's Spain the most technical team. Do you know what I mean? Like, technically, tactically, they get everything bang on, and they're probably one of the smallest teams. Yet they get success through their age groups predominantly. And that's the thing that I still don't get why in Scotland we're still doing the same concept with physicality. When it's proven that technicality and game intelligence is in essence what's going to make a player.
It does. I think it all depends on who you've got as a coach, who you've got as a manager, who you've maybe got as a chairman. Do you know what I mean? Like, doing all these things for the clubs. If you've got dinosaur type mentalities, you know, it's...
What's your philosophy, and do you stick to that?
Exactly.
And do you not care about results? Are you caring about the individual and developing them as opposed to...
Because eventually the results will come. 100%. Like, I can't understand how so many teams in Scotland don't actually promote their youth better than what they do. Like, give them an opportunity. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many good kids up here.
I think it's fear of failure.
Of course it is.
Like it's like results driven. They'll think like they're only thinking the next game as opposed to 2, 3, 4 years down the line.
Yeah.
And having a long term approach in terms of like, this is what this is what we stand for, this is what we're about, and this is what our club's going to incorporate throughout.
Definitely.
Middlesbrough, I suppose luck in football as well.
Well, it is, you know, to be a footballer, you do need massive amount of luck, and I certainly got that there, probably in a way that we didn't realise until I was a bit older.
Yeah.
But like I said, I got moved back with my age group at 12. So, and then literally 13, like everything just took off for me at that age. Like 13, I missed out age groups that moved us to play under 17s. Do you know what I mean? So I was moving up 3, 4 age groups.
And what did I think the change was at that point?
I think the confidence come back, the belief come back. And I honestly believe I worked harder than anyone else. Like I'm not kidding you. Like I would be in the garden or on the field every single night, like working both feet, working everything. Like it's so 12-year-old, people didn't know what foot I was.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it became that
good,
that evident. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think being the type of midfielder I was, like I could just, I seen pictures, and I think what was the people will always say, you're better with the better players around you.
Yeah.
So each age group I got moved up into, so say 13 and they played us a couple of 14s games, like I'm playing with better players and I'm becoming the best player in that.
Yeah.
Move up with the 15s, I'm playing with even better ones and I'm looking the best player in that. So then moved us to the 17s. Yeah, sometimes physically, you can't match people, but technically, and still being one of the top players in the under 17s, and this is a 13-year-old.
I just think that's because, like you said, you were gaining pictures and you're able to use both feet and you can move the ball quick, so you weren't getting a physical battle as opposed to...
Never got caught on the ball.
Yeah.
Like, I probably got caught on the ball more in my own age group.
Because players weren't moving quick enough.
Yeah, because like...
And sort of seeing where you were going to play.
Yeah, you're seeing things, but they're not like... Things aren't quite happening at the speed you're thinking in your head. But obviously when you move up the age groups, the players are obviously a lot better because they're older, more experienced. They've had more development years. And I was just put in that situation with these type of players, and it was like unbelievable. You
touched on hard work. Do you think people kid themselves when it comes to working hard? So obviously you were obsessed and you were at it constantly. Do you think, see when I watch players, I think some of them think they work hard, but they really don't. They work hard in their session, but the rest of the time, they're not putting the work in themselves. How important do you think that is in terms of like being that consistent on a daily basis? Building habits, working on the same routines, working with your left foot, your right foot, and just constantly being at it.
Massively. Like I think a lot of it comes down to, you know, like obviously kids, everyone still wants to be a footballer.
Yeah.
But do they want to be a footballer for the right reasons? Like, see, like I said, when we were growing up, you didn't have YouTube, so you couldn't like type in or all these things they type in now, and it shows you their lifestyles and whatever.
Yeah.
That's the very pinnacle. To get there is, like you said, the street football, coming in from school, quick having a sandwich and going out and playing footy, coming back when it's dark. Do you know what I mean? And doing that every night. Like almost going on the, like now they've got the AstroTurfs and that, and we would just put jumpers down as goals.
Just play.
And you'd just be playing. Literally till it's dark, you couldn't see.
Yeah.
And just doing that all the time. But it wasn't for any other reason than you just loved football. Do you know what I mean? Like,
people want the success without the actual journey.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's all about the journey. You have to change who you are to an extent to become who you want to become.
I think the journey is the journey is better than
achieve.
Aye. Because almost when you achieve it, to sustain it, comes a different type of pressure.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? When you're trying to get there, climbing is enjoyable. Do you know what I mean? I loved that bit. I don't know if for me it was because like I was on like just an elevator. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's pathways are different. Sometimes I kind of wish would it have been better if I had a different pathway, but my pathway just skyrocketed every single year. And then you ended up playing in the reserves at 14. 14, aye. That was there. So I remember So I played, like I said, I played the 17s when I was 13, and then 14 played regular 17s, sometimes played in the 19s. Middlesbrough were brilliant at that.
Yeah.
Middlesbrough were like,
If you're
we had
good enough, you're old enough.
Dave Parnaby, who was the academy director. Literally, if you were good enough, you're old enough. Do you know what I mean? I mean, they weren't silly, like they weren't daft. Like if they knew you were playing against a team that had proper massive players, and they would look after you a bit, but the majority of the time they just put you in. And I remember we played it, so just turned 14, and we played Nottingham Forest under 19s, and we played. Remember Jermaine Janis?
Yeah.
So he was playing. This was, and I'm playing against him, and I thought, wow, like. Wow, what a player. I obviously didn't know who he was at the time, but everyone was talking about this lad, and obviously a couple of years later he ended up going to Newcastle and that. But I think he was young at the time. But anyway, so I remember being at school, 14-year-old, and the teacher says to it, this was like, just say Tuesday, the teacher come to us and she's like, oh Josh, you're going to need to leave school early today, you've got a match away at Everton. And I was like, we don't play through the week. She was like, oh, well, the Middlesbrough have rang, they've said, can they get you in? And we've said aye. So anyway, I went home, says to my mum and dad, I'm playing Everton tonight. I went, oh, I know, Middlesbrough have rang, you're playing for the reserves. I was like, what? I'm playing for the reserves? Like, I was absolutely buzzing though. Like, so we went down to...
Do you reckon, obviously you're buzzing, which is great, and you're excited for it. Do you reckon that's been young and naive for the fact what you're going into? In terms of
bit of everything, like everything. Do you know, like I said, I played the older age groups, but never played obviously reserve team football. Yep. Reserve team football was first team football, really. Like it's all the first team players who hadn't really played. The younger lads trying to break in the team. So obviously there'd been a few injuries and whatever, and it was coming towards the latter stage of the season. Obviously, I'd been doing really well in the 17s. So I was on the bench at Everton. Who did they have playing? They had, I'm sure Stubbs was playing centre half. Right. Alan Stubbs. But they had Victor Anichebe, a big tank of a striker. They had a few others playing. 20 minutes to go. Like obviously I was on the bench. 20 minutes to go. The reserve team manager was like, "Josh, you're coming on." So at that point, I'm buzzing, and I remember we got a free kick just over the halfway line, maybe on the circle of the halfway point. And me and Colin Cooper, so bearing in mind I'm 14, Colin Cooper's 36, right? So, no, it was a bit further out than, it was a bit closer to the goal than that. And anyway, I've just ran over the ball. Do you know what I mean? And he's like, what are you going to do? Yeah. And I says, I don't know, I might shoot. And he's like, looked at us. I thought, I don't know what I should do really, but just maybe that naivety.
Confidence.
Aye. He's like, he says, you better do something good, yeah. Then if you're taking that ball, put the ball down, and just whipped in this free kick. And Danny Graham scored a header at the back post, and he just come running over to us and just like put his arm around us. He's like, fucking brilliant, that, And at that point, like, just I thought, I've come on for the reserve, set up, drew 2-2. Next week we're playing Man City. So this wasn't Man City to what they are now.
Yeah.
But they were played at the Riverside. A 14-year-old. I come on the last half hour. And honestly, like, do you know when you've played well? Like, I came on and I like absolutely dominated this game. And I remember after the game, my mum and dad were like sat, and there was like scouts and our first Steve McClaren and all that first team manager.
So he's the first team manager at the time.
And my mum and dad were saying, Josh, like all that was being said was your name. Do you know what I mean? And from that point, just played a couple more reserve games, started my first game at 15.
And at that time, was it just pure confidence? You were buzzing, excited for the next game?
Do you know what? I was never, ever arrogant, and I've never been that type of person. I knew on a football pitch, I knew at that stage, and I believed I was the best. Yep. Like
you have to be if you want to play that level as well. Do you know what I mean?
And I knew I worked as hard as anyone, if not harder. Do you know what I mean? I ate unbelievable. Like, going to school and that. I took a packed lunch all the time, but like I would have like for my sweets and that, I'd have raisins. Like, do you know what I mean?
Dedication.
Dedication was unbelievable. Probably to the OCD side.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like ridiculous. Like I remember if I had, this is stupid really, but I remember like if I'd had a pizza, the next day I'd be doing sit-ups. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just, I was obsessed.
So I think a lot of players will resonate with that, because I think a lot of people have got like certain things that they do, and then you feel guilty if you...
That's almost what it was.
Yeah.
And that is like 13,
you feel like you're
14 year old
cheating, so you like punish yourself a little bit.
And that's what it was.
Yeah.
And then I played started my first game for the reserves of 15 against West Brom, beat them 3-0, did really well, and then after that, just everything just...
So
England
when did you sign like a full-time contract?
So what happened down south then is you would stay at school till you were 16, and then, so what was it? They do the year groups differently down there. So what was that? Year 11. I left school in year 11, which would be like S5, yeah. Right. And signed at Middlesbroughs, but that was such a long delay on his signing because I literally had the choice of everyone to go to.
And what made you stick with Middlesbrough?
Well, it actually got to the point where what they'd done, they'd offered us a contract at 13. They'd offered us like a 2 years. They'd offered us a 2-year scholarship at 13 for when I left school at 16. So obviously, as a 13-year-old, he's delighted. Mum and dad delighted. Oh yes, he's. Anyway, the agents started coming. They were like, "Do not sign that. Whatever you do, do not sign that." And I'm like, "Why?" And they were like, "Because that's what everyone gets, a 2-year scholar. You're the best player in the country. Like, we'll get you whatever you want." Yeah. So
what age did the agent start engaging meeting then?
So we had the first meeting with one when I was 13, and then 13, 14, I signed with one. He didn't really have to do much as such. Then obviously I got was sponsored by Adidas at like 13, which was mint. Is
that fair to you, kid? That must have been unbelievable.
I don't know who loved it more, me or my mum and dad and my brother, because what used to happen is they'd send you so they have obviously that autumn collection, spring, summer. So you'd get, each box would come once every time of the year, and then you would get boots whenever you wanted them. Just ring up, train, anything. What
was the boots of choice? Was it
so I was Predators. So they had certain players for certain things. Right. So I was a Predator player. So they had me wearing Predators, and honestly, I must have had about 500 pair of boots over the years. I just used to wear them and give them to my mates, and I think, God, if I kept them now, they're worth a fortune. But anyway, we had that, and then there was once, because Nike were wanting to sign us as well, and it was coming to the renewal of me Adidas deal when I was turning 16. And at this point, like I say, all the teams wanted us. So what they did is they invited me, my mum, dad, and brother down to the Manchester headquarters. Right. And we went in the massive Adidas warehouse. And they come back with a trolley, and they just says, "Just go and get what you want." I was like, "You sure?" And they went, "Aye." But they got me a trolley, my mum, my dad, and brother. So, my mum ended up coming back with some skis. Never been skiing in her life. So when she did get them, she heard me brother did end up going skiing a couple of years later. But we were just, no one you
as a kid, was it no pinch yourself moments where you're like, this is insane?
We had to go. My dad had I can't remember, some kind of Jeep or something. We were kids. I don't know what it was. But me and my brother, so we've got the boxes piled up in the back of the car, in the boot, piled up on top of me and my brother. We couldn't even, driving back from Manchester. It was just unbelievable. When you look back, but you know what? It was so normal. That
just get used to it.
I was total buzzing to be getting it, and so proud and pleased and appreciative of it all. But it was just normal. Do you know what I mean? It became, that was the norm.
And in terms of, so you talked about your agent and stuff, were they quite influential in terms of setting up deals and setting up contacts with Adidas and all that? Did you engage with them quite a lot to get advised? We had Paul Watson on, and he was talking about that in terms of like, obviously you can get some good agents and some bad agents, and it's you have to try to identify the right ones that look after you.
Yeah.
So how was your experience with that?
I would say probably pretty mixed. I had two agents. To be honest, the second one I had was brilliant. The first one, I still think was really good. I just don't think we used them in the right way. I think I don't know if I was too young to maybe have one, but we were still making. You should always make your own decisions. But he would be advising us in ways, and we'd just kind of go off what we thought still. Do you know what I mean? But no, my experiences of agents were good.
Right.
Like, but I have had lads in teams, my mates in teams that have just been
Not looked after.
not looked after. Right?
Yeah.
But there's millions of them out there.
Yep. So your progression from the reserves into the first team, how did that come about?
It was like with the signing at Middlesbrough, it got to the point where I was going to leave. Like it actually got to the point where they weren't budging on what. To be honest, I wasn't bothered about the money side of it. Right, like obviously when you see this in front of you, what you can get elsewhere, it probably does turn your head, and I think it turned all our heads. And Chelsea had just been taken over by Abramovich and all that stuff, and it was the first time real money was coming in, not in the Premier League, it was already there, but Chelsea were like this super club, do you know what I mean? And they were relentless in what they were, like constant at my agent, like they were really trying to build their academy, what they've got now, do you know what I mean? Trying to get the best players from all over the world into the academy. And they were relentless on the phone, and I just thought, it got to the point where I just thought, no, I'm going to do it. Because Middlesbrough, nothing was really changing. Like, I mean, they had this bloke in charge, Keith Lamb. You'd think it was his money. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were paid, in my opinion, they had players in the first team on fortunes.
Right.
Who I was better than. Like, and I'm thinking, I'm after a percentage, a small, like, to what they're getting, and you're giving them fortunes.
I just think I was down to more age and experience.
Yeah, but they were like that with everyone. They were tight as hell with everyone. So anyway, the agent I had was like, see you later. You can go wherever you want. And so but the compensation was going to be quite a lot. So there was clubs that Chelsea were willing to pay anything, but some of the clubs there was like this ruling where you could go abroad.
Yep.
And then you could be bought off the foreign club for like 50 grand. So they were like working on things. It was all dodgy, like, but do you know what I mean? Like, so they were working on us maybe going to Anderlecht, and then someone buying us from there, but Anderlecht getting more money. Do you know what I mean? Like,
for handling over sort of thing.
But anyway, we decided on going to Chelsea. So I told Middlesbrough I was leaving. Literally by the time I'd finished my tea that night, Steve McClaren was on the phone with my mum and dad, who was the first team manager. I don't think he'd been fully aware of what was happening. Right. He was like, look, can you just come down for a meeting? That's
the mean you know you're important.
He was like, can you come down for a meeting? Like, can you come tonight? Can you come tomorrow? So we ended up going the next day. Had a meeting with him, and he sat there, and he was just like, look, I'm telling you right now, you're going to be a massive player in this first team. Like, you're going to be training with the first team the first day you come in here pre-season. This is the pathway we see you on. You'll be involved a bit this season. The following season, you'll be in there like non-stop. I was like, wow, that's better than, to me, that was better than any kind of money. Do you know what I mean? And so we agreed.
You still got that view now?
Do you know what? Like, the way things turned out injury-wise, money-wise, if I'd gone to Chelsea, do you know what I mean? And things might have been different. I might not have picked up the injury. You never know. But at that specific time, it was the right decision. 100%. And that was it. And come in first day of pre-season, the fitness coach come in the hall, and we had this big sports hall at Middlesbrough. I think still got it. And we all just used to go in and blast balls in the morning and that. And fitness coach come in, Josh, you were the big boys today. I'm like, the big boys who were there? He's like, the first team. I was like, everyone just looked at us like, fucking hell. Unbelievable.
But if you just came in on a first team deal, in your first full-time contract, and then you're right in the first team.
I went and trained with the first team, and you'd obviously mix about with the sessions you do. Sometimes you were the first team, sometimes you were the youth team, sometimes you were the reserves. But I played Oldham in a pre-season friendly, played against Carlisle, scored for the first team against Carlisle, 16. And then, but I picked up an injury just after pre-season, and I was out for a couple of months. Come back from that, playing really well in the reserves, got injured again, and that ruled us out till like a long time in that season. I'm sure I was out about 4 months in my first year after my first injury. So it's a long time in a season. And I was gutted, because I remember at the start of the year, my youth team coach got us all to write on a bit of paper about what you want to achieve this season.
I like that.
So I'll never forget, the lads were writing so we're all 16 at this point. So the lads are writing what was it then? 17s and 19s. So they were writing to be regular in the 17s by the end of the season, to be maybe get a chance in the 19s, possibly play in the reserves. My objectives were completely different. I'm playing the first team, start 2 games for the first team, score a goal for the first team. And but that I believed I could do that. Do you know what I mean? I fully believed I could do that. And I believe I would have played more games that year if I hadn't been injured, just with the way the season went and the way McClaren was. And he absolutely loved us. He loved us. But unfortunately, I was injured quite a bit.
See, when you setting those goals and stuff, and you're talking about mindset, how big a factor do you think that plays in terms of that, because there's a thought process, you actually believe you can achieve these things, you write them out. How much sort of, I don't know what I'm looking for here.
It's in your head. So do you know, you know yourself, right? If you set yourself a target and you don't hit that target, the
fact that it's written down, you're setting yourself goals. How important do you think that is for you actually giving you that to go and get it? Do you think that makes a big difference?
Massive, yeah, massive. And the first one I had on my list was to have a first team squad number, and I got that. I got that a couple of weeks later. And I thought, God, that's one ticked off. Next one, train with him, ticked off. Next one, captain of the youth team, ticked off. Play for England. All mine were getting ticked off. And it was and
as that's happening, you're probably growing in confidence.
The belief's getting more and more. And because you're then training with the first team, all the first team players knew my name. They would speak to us.
So in terms of the players you've been around, who's probably the most influential? In terms of guiding you and helping you, so you're making transition from the reserve to the first team. And that's when you talk about players big leaders that can help guide you and show you the right way and show you how to do things.
Well, we had a Brazilian player called Deriva, who was a midfielder. And he just completely took us under his wing. Whether it was because I was just young and first time coming in the first team training with him and that, he just looked after us from day one. And made sure if I needed, he would always be chatting to us. Always. And
it would be about the game or how you're feeling, or would it just be a mix of
general
stuff?
Life. Do you know what I mean? Walk. So at Middlesbroughs, the training base is on the top of a hill, and you walk down the hill. 9 times out of 10, he'd be walking down, arm round us, or after training, brilliant there. And I think maybe you need to work on this, or do you know what I mean? Taking the time, or just what you're doing tonight. He was class for that. It just made us feel at ease straight away.
Older players do things like that, though, eh? Try and the whole point is to try and pass on your knowledge, and basically what we do. That's why I enjoy it so much. You can try and help people, and the mistakes you made or the lessons you learned, you can pass on and help kids make a difference.
Definitely. And he was, I would probably say, for that transition for me, he was brilliant for that. And then that made us feel at ease when I was training with him, because when you just turned 16 and you're training with the first team or with first team players, it can be daunting. I remember we had some massive names in there, Viduka, Hasselbank. So this was when you were cleaning boots and that. So I cleaned Hasselbank's boots.
Even when you were on the first team?
Well, I saw you got given them So all the first year scholars were cleaning boots. So
Do you see in terms of the duties you get as a player, in terms of cleaning boots, where it's cleaning the balls, pumping up the balls, making sure the equipment's ready for the first team, I think they've stopped all that. Do you think that was a good part of earning your way?
They have to bring that back because it just keeps everyone grounded. Do you know what I mean? And like there was one day with this. So obviously I'm cleaning Hasselbank's boots. One day I'd forgot to do it. And I'm training with the first team that day. And he went fucking off it. Do you know what I mean? And rightly so. But like, that's how it should be. Yep. Do you know what I mean? I just forgot. It wasn't like, oh.
Did he do it to teach you a lesson, or do you reckon he was actually really bored his boots wasn't clean?
Well, I think it was probably
bit of both.
Probably a bit of both, aye. And but I do remember once we were Hasselbank, and I think this is when McClaren like took to me even more. Like obviously he's gone off what everyone said about us. He's seen us. But then when there was a training session we did at Middlesbroughs, and it was like the goals at either end on half a pitch. Midfielder knocks it up to a striker, or a couple of strikers joins in against, there's two defenders against them. But one's going that way. As it's finishing, the next ball's coming the other. So I'm waiting for my turn anyway. I can't remember who was on there. But Jimmy's wanting the ball played up, but I'm delaying me pass because the pitch is like pure packed. And he's like, he used to call us wee man. And he's like, wee man, pass the ball. Like, I'm like, fuck off. Like I just had to go back, like just thinking, not knowing where I was. And he's like, who are you talking to? And I'm like, but I like just kind of stood there. I was like, well, there's no on. I can't play it because the pitch is packed. McClaren come over. It was, I love that. Love that. But like, I could have crumbled there and then, but I didn't, you know. And I think that was just the young naivety of us not remembering I'm with Hasselbank.
Well, you know you're in the right as well.
But I was in the right.
100%.
I was in the right. 100%. I still, this day, I was in the right there. Because if I'd played it and hit one of the lads in the middle, the manager would be like, what are you doing? How can't you see that? Do you know what I mean?
I looked before you played back.
Aye.